Hello, beautiful people. Today I want to share with you everything that I read in January. I read some incredible books. If you are new to my channel, hi, I'm April. You can think of me as your bookish fairy godmother. On this channel, my goal is to set you up with your next 5-star read. And these are just some of the books that I've given 5 stars that just like sit rent-free in my head. So if you like what you see, go ahead and subscribe, ring the bell, stay a while. All right, so we are going in order from like I'm least likely to recommend these books to you to most likely to recommend these books to you. Spoiler alert, there are so many good books on this list. I had a great start to the reading year. Now, to all of my fantasy lovers out there, you are all about to gasp in horror by what I'm about to lift up. This is The Will of the Many. This book I struggled with. I think this is a it's me, not you scenario. This follows a kind of dystopian world where there's a society that lives very much in a hierarchy of will. So this will is a power, your own power, your strength, all of that. It lives within a hierarchy. If you're lower on the hierarchy, somebody above you could basically kick your butt in every which way. They're faster than you, smarter than you, stronger than you kind of vibes. So this follows a man named V or Viz, and he is actually from a kingdom that did exist before this hierarchy was created, but it fell when the hierarchy rose. And he is not supposed to be really alive. He is trying to keep his identity on the down low. So as you can imagine, he's lower on the ranks. Now he does meet someone who takes him under his wing and says, okay, you're going to go into this school and kind of try to rise the ranks. While you're there, hey, can you spy on people? And he goes in and has no problem doing that because what he ultimately wants to do is bring the whole hierarchy down. He wants revenge for his family that was lost. I struggle with fantasy. I've been trying this last year to find fantasy that works. Robin Hobbs seems to be the only one that really works for me. And maybe I need to just listen to that and just go with that and just spend my time reading other things. This was fine. I will say that I did find it a little bit difficult to grasp everything that was happening, grasp all of the characters. I didn't really feel very strongly about our main character. I felt like the challenges within the school system, I kept waiting for them to be really interesting. They just weren't for me. So it just didn't work for me, but please do not take my advice on fantasy, okay? Unless you are someone like me who doesn't read a lot of fantasy, this might not be the place to start. Maybe try the Robin Hobbs route. So let's put that over here. Next, we've got Hairpin Bridge by Taylor Adams. I have loved so many Taylor Adams books, and this was the first one that I felt okay about. It was good, but not like amazing. This follows a woman whose twin sister died very suddenly. She was said to have jumped to her death off of Hairpin Bridge. She doesn't believe that she would have done that without leaving something behind for her. Now, that is not to say that they were close. They were not close twins, but she still feels like they were close enough for her to leave something behind. So she goes to Hairpin Bridge. She wants to know more from the cop who her sister met, I think an hour before her death, because in her like goodbye text that she sent her, the text said, I'm sorry, I couldn't live with it. Something along those lines. Please forgive me. I hope you can live with it. Corporal Raymond Racevec. And so she's going, I don't understand. I need to know more about this detective police guy. So she goes, And basically what this whole book is like a standoff. Like, think about like the Wild West and all of those standoffs, like stick 'em up kind of vibes. That is the whole thing. It like takes place in one setting, very small area. There's a forest fire coming in the background towards them. I read this when the LA fires broke out, which is like very strange timing. Anyway, and it's about her like trying to survive that ordeal. It's very graphic and super interesting, but I just didn't love it as much as her other books, but still, or his other books, I should say. Taylor is a man. But I would say pick it up if you like that kind of like stick 'em up kind of vibes. I'd say pick it up. This next book was sent to me from Little Brown Company. This is Dearest. This is a horror book, and it follows a woman who has just had a child. Now, she is on her own because her husband is deployed somewhere, and she's dealing with postpartum depression. She is really struggling. Her dad and his wife comes to visit and is trying to help her out for a while, I think a couple of weeks, and she's grateful, but they leave. And she's left on her own, and she's kind of missing her mom. She leaves a message with her mom, who she hasn't talked to since her wedding, when like it was a very awkward wedding because of her mom. She hasn't talked to her in a long time. And her mom shows up at her door. And at practically the same time, strange things were starting to happen in her house. And so she's kind of like, oh, kind of thank God you're here, but also not sure if I want you here. It's one of those awkward things. And our main character kind of wants to work through some of the stuff with her mom and their relationship. She's also really tired. I will say this is a bit of a slow burn, and it took a while for anything really horror-esque to start. And it kind of went from where is the horror to here it is, wham, here is all of the horror. And it is like gross horror. There's some gruesome bits in here, but also really terrifying bits in here as well. I did like it. I will say it obviously gave me some Night Bitch vibes, because also about a postpartum woman dealing with depression. But I would say more horror, understandably, less literary, understandably. So I did really enjoy it. I will definitely read more by Jackie Walters, but this wasn't like, didn't blow my mind or anything, but I did enjoy it and I would recommend picking it up. The next book I read was The Quiet Tenant. This has been on my shelves for so long, and I finally dusted it off and read it and really enjoyed it. This is about a man named Aiden, and you learn about him through the women in his life. Now, this man seems like an ordinary man in a pretty small town. His wife has just passed away. The town is kind of congregating around him, trying to help him out. He has a daughter that he needs to take care of, and the town really rallies behind him. Meanwhile, he has a woman in his shed. He's got a woman in his shed. He kidnapped a woman a long time ago, and she's there. And you follow the story from the perspective of the woman in the shed, his daughter, and then a woman who has a great crush on him in the small town. She works at a restaurant there, and she really loves him. Pretty much, she lusts after him, I should say. I just really liked that it centered that way, that it centered the women, and you learn about him through them. And I thought that was so well done. I really, really enjoyed that. It's gripping. I found myself really worrying, obviously, about the woman in the shed. Throughout this, I was terrified for her. I was kind of annoyed at bits and parts with the woman who has the crush on him. But all that to say, it was a really fun, easy to read book. You'll be flipping the pages as you go along. So if you're looking for a thriller, that is addictive and gripping and a little bit different, I would recommend The Quiet Tenant. The next book I want to recommend is Bless Your Heart. Now, I picked up this book because Wynn over at Literary Diversions just raved about this book. It was on her top 10 or favorite books of 2024. It just sounded like so much fun. And it was. This is set in 1990, which is like perfect for me, nostalgic for my growing up time. And it follows a family of women who all work at a funeral home, and it follows the youngest of the women there, but she's a girl, she's a teenager, and she starts having these really strange dreams. Can't explain it. And the rest of her family has been keeping a secret from her. These women in this family has forever stopped the undead. The undead rear their ugly heads, usually in their funeral home because it's a small town, and they put a stop to them by killing them off. It's like Buffy Vampire Slayer, basically. It is so much fun. It is humorous. It takes place in a southern town, and it's very, very humorous, but also quite graphic and gross. I will warn you. If you don't like body horror, wow, there's a lot of that here, but it's nice because it's paired with so much humor that it like kind of tamps down the grossness, I will say. Also, let me just say, I don't really like the cover of this book. The UK cover is way better. This one I just didn't really like. It suggests that it's like a cute book. It's funny, but it's still horror. So I don't really understand what's going on with that cover. Don't let the cover fool you. Sometimes the cover does not reflect the insides. Next up is The House That Horror Built by Christina Henry. Christina Henry is becoming an author that I really, really enjoy. That's kind of like a must-buy author now. I've read 2 of hers now. I guess that doesn't technically mean she's a must-buy author. How many books do you have to love before that they become that for you? In any case, this book follows a cleaning woman named Harry. She goes to this very well-respected horror film director, his home. She goes there several times a week to clean for him. His home is like filled with all of these statues and all of these, not statues, but like things, props. That's what the word I was looking for. It's filled with props from his horror movies. And these were like legendary. Like, this man is an Oscar-winning horror director. And she goes and dusts alongside of him. She cleans alongside of him. Meanwhile, she's really struggling at home. She is a single mother to a teenage son. And they're really, really struggling financially. And this so interestingly delves into the history of Harry's life as well as the history of Javier's life. Javier is the horror director. And you dive into their histories and find out how they got to where they are. Because Javier's background is quite dark. He doesn't actually leave his house because a long time ago, his wife and his son was like accused of murdering a girl. His wife and his son suddenly vanish. They are gone out of nowhere. And he has moved away from Hollywood and lives in this Chicago mansion on his own, never leaves the house. Really only sees Harry. And while Harry is cleaning, she starts hearing from a door that is always locked, "Help, help me. What is happening? What is happening?" It was so riveting. I loved the ode to horror movies. You can tell that Christina Henry likes horror movies herself. It really tackles poverty and wealth and privilege and prejudice, and I just thought it was beautifully layered in that way. I really enjoyed it. So highly recommend. The Red Parts, an autobiography of a trial, is next. This follows Maggie's own experience with a murder trial. Maggie's aunt was murdered before she was born, I believe, and it absolutely rocked her family's life. This is nonfiction, I should mention. And she speaks to her aunt's life through the book. She speaks to what it's like to be at a trial, seeing the murderer right there, and the strange things that you think of. Like, I really appreciated this because if any of you out there enjoy true crime, I think this gives you a really different perspective because it comes from the family's perspective, and she's like an insanely good writer of her own right. So you're getting really quality stuff, and the things that go through their heads isn't necessarily things that you think would be happening when their loved ones' bodies, mutilated bodies in this case, are shown on screen in front of the courtroom. It's not always what you think would be going through your head. That seemed to be going through Maggie's head, at least. She follows the trial with her family members. Her grandfather is often in court. She's always at her mother's side. And she and her mom have like had up and down situations with their relationship, and shows what this kind of devastating murder can do to a family and what it can do to the psyche of people who never even met their loved ones. It was so interesting. I liked that it also explored Maggie's father's death as well. It kind of explores this idea of justice. How do you get justice from someone who's never going to see the light of day again because of a murder? Is there ever the opportunity to truly get justice? When do you feel better? And it doesn't give much of an answer to any of that, but it's just like a snippet of the trial and Maggie's musings on it. And I really appreciated it so much. Definitely, anyone who likes true crime, please, please, please go and read this. Like, this should be up there with the best of them. Sipsworth is next. I loved this book. This follows an elderly woman who is living on her own. She is in her 80s. And one day she sees that her neighbors are putting some stuff to the curb, and she's kind of curious. She goes over and picks up a couple of things and brings them inside, and inside is a mouse. She finds a mouse and she's not sure what to do with it. She kind of wants it out, but she ends up holding onto this mouse, and she calls him Sipsworth, and she talks to this mouse. She's a very lonely woman, and this is one of the most heartwarming books I have ever read in my life. I absolutely loved every second of this. I actually picked this up because Russell over at Ink and Paper Blog had this in his favorite books of 2024. I just love getting recommendations from people's like favorites lists. I get so much joy out of the books that they've gotten joy out of. So thank you, Russell. Yeah, I loved it so much. I am absolutely getting this from my mom for her birthday. My mom doesn't usually watch this channel. So anyway, I definitely am getting that for her. It was wonderful. If you need a hug, go get this book. Go and get this book. Oh my word. But my favorite book that I read in January was easily Dorine by Barbara Noble. So this is a Persephone book. I have not hauled this one yet because I got this for Christmas from Barry. This takes place in World War II, in which it's a time in England where a lot of people were wondering, do I keep my child home? Do I send them to the English countryside? In this case, we follow a single mom who's decided to keep her child home for a very long time. And she's grateful that she did, because she knows a lot of moms who like sent their child to the English countryside, but then no bombs dropped in London. And so they're like without the child for so long. So she's grateful, but then the bombs do start dropping. The bombs start dropping, and she and her child, Dorine, are going to, or Dorine, I should say, that's how you say her name. They start going to underground spots that might help them stay safe from the bombs. But it gets bad enough, and she's worrying pretty constantly about Dorine's safety. So she finds a couple to send Dorine to. And Dorine goes to the English countryside and stays with a couple who are so kind to her. And this couple fall completely head over heels for Dorine. Now, this couple have always wanted children, and Dorine becomes a bit of a child for them, like their own child. They love her like she's their own, and they end up wanting to keep her. It is about the story of Dorine and what happened to her while she's there. It is perfection. I love Barbara Noble. I've read now 2 of her books, and just loved every second. I love that Persephone Books brings back books and reprints books from women that haven't been read in years and years and years. It's just such a wonderful thing, and I definitely want to hopefully get a Persephone Classics for Christmas every year. Oh my God, I just made that up just now. That would be wonderful. In any case, that's what I think I want to do, is always have a Persephone Classic for Christmas. Oh, I love that. I ended up picking this up and hearing about this in the first place from Jen Campbell. She gushed about this once, and it just sounded right up my alley, and it really was. It paid off, let me tell you. And it's honestly funny because Barry, at the end of day, on Christmas Day, he was like, what was your favorite gift that you got? And I was like, Dorine. Like, and it paid off. It really still is. Dorine is my favorite. So I highly recommend, if you like historical fiction, I just want to read more historical fiction, especially when they lived in that time. Like, Barbara Noble lived through World War II, okay? They know inside and out what that was like. So, I just need more of this in my life. So, would so highly recommend Dorine. And those were all of the books that I read in January. Let me know in the comments below what you read. What was your favorite book that you read in January? Hope you had an amazing reading month, and hope February is even better for you. And I will talk with you very soon. Bye.